This is a wonderful passage for Communion Sunday, I think. And it brings up some questions. What does Jesus mean when he says, the work of the Lord is to believe in the one whom he has sent? And another thing, why do we still have an altar in the church? Why do we have an altar in the church? Seems like we could just have a normal table, couldn't it? But we still have an altar in the church. Gene, can I have one more? If we're going to understand the significance, and when I mean the significance, I mean we're going to understand this morning maybe something that we haven't understood before. The cosmic power that is unleashed by this altar and this table and what Jesus said, we have to understand what religion has always been and probably still is quite a bit to this day. I learned this in seminary and it started to click for me. I was like, you know what, that's exactly right. Religion is about sacrifice. It's always been about sacrifice. And if you think about it, back in the ancient Near East, the pagans, the Romans, the Greeks, there was always an altar and grains were brought. And people burned the grains. And then meat and blood, the fattier the meat, the better, were burned upon this altar. And why were they done? Why did they do that? Because God was an angry God. You didn't want to mess with God. God wasn't someone you wanted to be your friend. That is for sure. God might shine on you in battle if you put the right kinds of fatty meats on the grill. And the smoke was thought to raise up into the nostril of the God or our God and placate this angry God. If we look further, one more, Gene, if you would. Children were also sacrificed. And in our religious tradition, we have to understand that it happened. Children were sacrificed. People would sacrifice their own child and burn them up on an altar. This is Abraham and Isaac. This is the worldview that people had of the angry God. There's a story, and I wish I looked it up, it just came to mind. And it's either the Perizzites or the Jebusites or whatever, but the Israelis or the Jewish peoples go to God and they say, shall we go into battle against this huge army that outnumbers us? And God says, yes, go into battle. I am with you. Not only that, by the way, when you kick the pants off of all the men, this is what God wants you to do. Go in there and put to the sword every old man, woman, and child. And the pregnant women, I think it'd be a good idea if you rip their stomachs open with your swords. I, the Lord, have spoken. So they go out into battle, and there's this bulwarks, and they are just beating the snot out of the Jebusites or whoever it is. And the king of the opposing army, they notice, he takes his son and ties a rope around his waist, and he throws him over the bulwark so that his son is hanging there by a rope. And then the king has his son set on fire, and his son bursts into flames. And what is the reaction of the Israelite army? They look at this and they say, their God is going to be very pleased with that. We are in some serious trouble. And sure enough, the battle turned because they were afraid that this sacrifice to that God was going to be such powerful medicine that God was now going to protect them, and that their God was more powerful than our God, or than their God. And sure enough, they lost the battle. When I think about this, Jesus spent so much of his time trying to tell us this is not who God is. God does not desire sacrifice. In fact, if you think about it, any God who, if any God who's angry at you, or who's made a decision, or is going to punish you, or is going to bring about some turn of events, that you could take a steak and toss it on the grill and change the God's mind. It was said that these would intoxicate God into changing his mind. Any God who is so dangerous that, I don't know, maybe one morning he gets up and looks down after breakfast and says, I don't know why I ever did this whole experiment. These people are absolutely rotten. I think I'll make it rain for so long that it drowns everybody. And then afterwards says, maybe that wasn't such a good idea. I'm sorry, I should have done that. Noah, you're kind of in charge now. By the way, never again will I destroy the human race with water. Seems to leave quite a few options left on the table. How do we have a relationship with a God who has that much power? You think about having a relationship with your boss. Can you have a truly open, honest, transparent relationship with your boss? No. Because anybody who can say, fire you, you're always going to have that niggling little thought in the back of your mind, I can't be too honest. I can't share everything. I still need to perform. It's sort of why this whole thing of most organized religion, we still don't get it today. How do you have a personal relationship with someone who has the power to condemn you to hell? I submit it's impossible. You cannot have a personal relationship with someone that has that much power. It is impossible. You cannot trust, you cannot love completely, you cannot be vulnerable, you cannot fully give over everything of yourself to someone who has that kind of power. And yet that's what much of organized religion says to do. Give your heart over to Jesus and hope and pray that when Judgment Day comes, you're going to be okay. It's what Jesus fought so hard to teach us is the wrong way to look at things. Has anybody ever seen the movie Dances with Wolves with Kevin Costner? I just thought this was a neat illustration. And I mostly do it because I think it's a neat illustration. I also do it because it's hot. I do not want to wake it up a little bit.
But you were thinking, well, why don't you write? Oh, you socks?
Trust is a hard thing to give. It can be a hard thing to give. But I think only when we're prepared to realize that we're unconditionally loved by God are we able to trust God and return that love to God. One big part of Jesus' message is he said, it is finished. And part of that is enough with the sacrifices, enough with the slaughtering of the bulls, burning the grains, trying to earn your way into heaven by being perfect and policing everyone else around you to ensure that they are being as perfect as you. He Stop trying to manipulate God by burning meat on the grill and rushing frenetically about your life, trying to earn your way into God's love, because you already have it just as you are. You can't manipulate God or put God into a box. Unfortunately, you are all, as am I, already judged. And we're judged worthy of unconditional love. And that's what Jesus came to say. So I'm sort of wrapping this up. So why do we have this altar? Why do we still have an altar? If we're done with sacrifice, why do we have an altar? Because the stunning reversal that has happened is God says, you don't need to feed me with your sacrifices anymore. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to feed you. I don't need animals' blood and flesh anymore, because I am going to feed you my blood and my flesh. Is that just a cosmic mind-blowing thing? It is to me. As we now walk towards this altar is now no longer an altar used to placate an angry God. This is an altar that we approach and allow a loving God to feed us with himself. And it seems to me that the only way that we can truly love God is when we are able to walk up to this altar and accept that God is feeding us.